each, and I will hand it over to Donna.
Good evening. Can you?
As close as possible. There you go.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming, both in person and virtually with us tonight. We have had a pretty exciting November. I'm pressing the wrong button. Where we've made a lot of decisions. The building committee has made a lot of decisions, and we're excited to be able to bring this forward as we continue through what we call the feasibility study phase with MSBA. We will be seeking the building committee's approval to submit what's called the preferred schematic report, also known as the study, which is the preferred solution to bring forward into schematic design. We anticipate a successful vote December 18th. We'll be submitting to MSBA somewhere around the 23rd of December, and MSBA will be approving the project to support your preferred solution in February. In the meantime, we're going to continue to move forward with the schematic design. So we have a final solution, preferred solution, and we're going to actually start developing that solution, which is really the focus of the schematic design phase. That will take approximately 6 months. We'll be sharing updates as they become available and as the design evolves throughout the schematic design phase, with a vote from the school building committee to submit the preferred or the schematic design of the preferred solution in June for MSBA to approve the project in its entirety for program, cost, and schedule. And that will occur in August of 2024. And then at that time, the town has up to 120 days to secure the funding for the project. And I know the town's still working out all the details. So for now, we'll have more information to report out as we move forward with the project. So just really quickly, high level, and we took all of these goals and priorities into consideration, and the committee has deliberated quite a bit with all of the community input. But the project goals really, we'll go through them all. A cost-efficient, building-efficient school. Sustainability is really important. Most importantly, 21st century learning, that a building meets the needs of students and staff for effective learning, and that the building is flexible and adaptable for spaces within that meet the education program today and also for the future. So as I said, this is where we are as far as the feasibility study. So what does that mean? We submitted the preliminary design program in July, and we've been working towards the preferred schematic report. So that means we have summarized the process and the conclusions, cost comparison table, all of this which we've been displaying for the past month or so. And then, of course, just documenting the recommendation for the most cost-effective and educationally appropriate solution. And then, as I mentioned, MSBA will be reviewing it and supporting it in February.
So for those that joined us in the community forum back in September or had the ability to look at and listen to that meeting online, at the conclusion of that meeting, we introduced a thought exchange or a public survey with the intent to get beyond the reach of what's been happening in the discussions in the building committee meetings, thoughts and reactions to some of the goals and the direction for the project. Primarily, one of the decisions was to decide on enrollment between including Fox Hill and Pine Glen, or to remain 4 separate schools. So really quickly and pretty high level, our partners at Thought Exchange were able to let us know that engagement-wise was very, very good for a district of this size. And in response, we had over 22,000 people react to those comments that were provided from the public into the thought exchange. And in the grand scheme of things, the overarching and resounding results was in the summary provided by the AI from thought exchanges on the screen, but really quickly, the resounding theme was to maintain the 4 separate elementary schools. So I think, given the engagement and the reaction to those comments, I think it provided the building committee with information from which to make that decision to, as Donna mentioned, go through the MSBA's process and put that decision behind us. So further information about the thought exchange, we do have some information on the project website. If there's questions, we're more than happy to share. Many more of the analytics and some of the comments that came throughout that process, as most people had the ability to see some of those comments if you participated in that thought exchange.
So as everyone has heard, we had quite a few, 8 actually, alternatives or options that we needed to study. So I'm not going to go into it tonight, but it's clear that all of the renovation addition options were dismissed, as well as the combined Fox Hill and Pine Glen schools. So that left us with further evaluating just option 3, which is a new school for Fox Hill only. Just to remind everyone that we went through quite a lengthy process to make sure that we had all the educational program needs incorporated into the new school. And so you currently have a school of approximately 64,000 square feet, where your new school is approximately 91,000 square feet. So for similar programs and needs, you can see that your school is really undersized. We've talked about spatial relationships and adjacencies and making sure that we can maximize time on learning and really have the special education integrated as well as the student support services. So we've spent some time talking to district folks, including staff, not only from Fox Hill, but from other elementary schools, to make sure that the spatial relationships and adjacencies of the programs meet your needs. So as a result, a 2-story school looks somewhat like this, and it looks a little different in each of the options, and we're pretty sure it's not going to quite be this configuration by the time we complete schematic design. But we use this as a guide and a tool when we talk about where the programs go and how this informs the footprint and also the massing of the school. What we can share with you is the facilities. The big red arrow is the entrance of the school. We'll have our main administration wing. Can you see my mouse? Yeah, you can a little bit, right?
I'm like, you know, between my, they don't have my elbows yet. Take a picture of you.
Yeah.
Okay. The main administration will be at the front of the school to welcome students, parents, and visitors to the school. Beyond that, as you enter into the school, is the cafetorium with the stage. It will be cafeteria with the stage, hence cafetorium. And then the other community use space is the gymnasium. And so combining these spaces together allows the school the opportunity to close off the academic wing and be able to use the community spaces for after school and weekend use without intruding or impeding on the classroom wing or academic wing. The academic wing is organized with 4 full-size classrooms per grade. Right now we're showing 1 purple in every cluster of 4 classrooms. That's to support special education as well as other support programs such as literacy, tutors, and a literacy library. So it provides the school the flexibility for when the grades grow and you need 3 or 4 classrooms or even 5 classrooms. You have the flexibility to move programs around to meet your needs. We have an elevator, of course, that will be fully accessible at the main entrance that will lead you upstairs, as well as a large glass staircase to bring the natural light into the building. Upstairs, we've created what we call a STEM or a STEAM area, which includes the art room, a science tech engineering space, and then the media center, as we see that as being the hub. So when you arrive at the school, it should be bright and visible with lots of natural light streaming into the school and fully accessible to all students. So we narrowed it down to Fox Hill only, and we looked at 2 locations. We have the north location, which is to the north of the existing building. That's 3B and 3D. And then the southeast portion of the site, which is to the southeast of the existing building. We looked at 1 2-story option, 2 2-story options, and 1 3-story option for the southeast site options. At one of the recent building committee meetings, it was decided that a 2-story option really provides the best adjacencies and program connections within the building, and it doesn't increase the cost much, it doesn't increase the energy much, and it just fits nicer within the within the neighborhood and the surrounding areas. So we landed with a 2-story option, so we're getting closer, right? So we went from all of those options to option 3, and then we went down to 2 options. And it really was a lengthy, great discussion on if the school belongs in the southeast of the site versus to the north of the site. Again, not much cost difference, slightly more for the location to the southeast, given the topography and the soil requirements to construct the school. And then, of course, bringing the pavement and circulation all the way into the school. The cost of the building really doesn't increase much, but it's more based upon the location of the school. One other important note is that the location of the building in the southeast corner is about 15 feet from the existing school, which must remain in operation during construction. So that was one important consideration compared to the new school that would be to the north of the building, which is approximately 85 feet from the existing building. And so after a really good discussion, it was arrived at that a 2-story school in the northern portion of the site is the preferred solution for the project. And we'll just take you through what does that mean currently. We will continue to explore opportunities to improve the site, the circulation. We understand what we're calling a traffic circle still needs to be completely vetted, but these are the concepts that we'll now study as we move into schematic design. So I'll just quickly show the red dashed in area is the existing building. So everything that we do, we want to be mindful as it relates to construction and the impact it will have on the existing school as it has to continue to operate. So working with our traffic consultant and trying to figure out how to streamline the traffic coming in from Westwood as well as Fox Hill, and also try to slow down some of the drivers that do come through here pretty fast. Traffic circle is the solution that is being brought forward. We'll continue to study it. We have met with public safety officials, and everyone had no objections to the traffic circle. Of course, they wanted to be large enough so that their vehicles and buses can circulate. So we'll, of course, fully vet that. But what we're able to do is have everyone utilize the traffic circle without coming to stops and backing up traffic on both Westwood and Fox Hill Road. We have created a dedicated bus drop-off area that will allow the buses to line up and not interfere with the traffic of the parents. The parents are in the blue coming around the parking lot, and that length is approximately the same length that you would need for your current school population. Another important consideration is the van drop-off. You'll have the lab program that currently is here, special education program, but there's also another special education or partial special education program that will be also introduced to the new school. And those students require additional time for arrival and dismissal. So we have a separate drop-off area so that they can take the time that they need, again, without interfering with the parent drop-off and pickup areas. We'd also like to note that we're showing fields here, but that has not been really fully vetted. It's just showing you the size and proportions of all of the open space once your existing school is demolished. And it just really opens up the site, whether it remains for passive recreation, active recreation, or just some nice green space. We're going to continue to refine the circulation for the walkers, pedestrian access. You currently have a driveway or sidewalk along Fox Hill Road, which is on the left-hand side. So we'll continue to refine this and make sure that we have the right safety points in place to make this as accessible and safe for the pedestrians and the walkers coming into the school. And we're just showing this slide, which really just identifies the impacts and considerations, which are important for us as we start thinking about what is the construction impacts are going to be, what do we need to do as far as making sure that the soils are suitable for the construction, and then also equally important is what you'll see in the red hatched are how can we minimize the disturbance and removal of trees. And what we're currently showing is that we feel that there'll be very little removal of trees with this option. What you'll also see are a bunch of red dotted lines, and we'll get to that, but that is for the geothermal wells that we're really excited about introducing to the project. So we had to think about, okay, where are those gonna go? So that was pretty exciting solution as well as part of the solution. And before we got too far into any solution, we vetted and walked through what the phasing would look like, construction phasing would look like for the school. So what you'll see here is the existing school with the current circulation that comes into the site. The blue are the parents. And we've actually identified that we would need to create a new or temporary bus drop-off area. So again, we're using that traffic circle for the buses to be able to come in, drop off the students in the front of the school, go around the traffic circle, and then exit. The new school, which is hatched in red, that's the contractor zone, is sitting squarely where your existing parking is. So we would also need to create temporary parking, which we've identified here, and also create a play area for the students temporarily. So the first phase, the contractor would take occupancy and ownership of what's hatched in red. Once the new school is complete, we then move everyone into the new school, and we can officially say goodbye to the existing Fox Hill School. This will be mostly completed, but we'll still need the temporary parking, and we'll continue to use the traffic circle, but that will be for a short phase. And then again, once that's completed, we'll finish up the parking and then clean up the site. Here's a massing or an idea of what the school could look like. We're just starting to talk about massing and what the arrival's gonna look like. We haven't started talking about materials and selection of materials and Where does all the glass go? So this is, now that we have a solution, we really look forward to getting into the fun stuff, which will really start making the project come to life. Some other goals and priorities relate to sustainability. So we know net zero energy is really important to the community, and we feel that we can achieve at least a net zero energy ready building, whether the solar panels are part of this project or it will be through a purchase power agreement, which you currently do for a lot of your other schools or other buildings in town. But we'll make sure that we've designed the school in such a way that if they come in after we're complete, that all of the infrastructure will be there. We will conduct a solar study to make sure that we are locating our mechanical equipment on the roof in such a way that maximizes the roof for solar panels. With that said, it will be an all-electric building, and I'll show you a couple of slides, but we're really excited about the opportunity to introduce ground source heat pumps, or also known as geothermal, as part of the project. So that's going to replace what you currently have, such as your boilers. And then we will talk about how the energy or the heat and the cooling, the ventilation is distributed through the building. But recognizing the ground source heat pumps or geothermal as part of the project now, we know what the costs are, and we can start getting into and taking advantage of some of the savings. So we've studied a lot of the mechanical options. We studied, I think there's 7 of them. And as we started talking with some local incentives through Mass Save, Eversource is your local part of Mass Save, but they have some great incentives right now. And if we can have an energy use intensity, which is a measurement of how much energy you use in your building, to under 25, that they will reimburse you quite significantly for having such an energy efficient building. And part of that is they just introduced, they'll even pay you more if you use ground source heat pumps. So that was one of the deciding factors as it relates to making the ground source heat pumps even affordable. In addition, the Inflation Reduction Act, which you used to not be able to take advantage of because it was for tax-paying entities, now they're saying that for non-tax-paying entities that they'll actually pay you, give you a check, a direct payment, if you also go with ground source heat pumps. And there's some other opportunities as well to save money. So what you're seeing here is the EUI in the first column. This just tells you, based on the system, VAV with gas, which is a variable air volume. Gas, it's kind of your traditional system that you would see in older schools. VRF system, which is an air source type system. And then we have air source with various distribution systems. And we'll make sure that we have a definitions page. We'll make sure that that's included and available to you. So I don't want to spend time going through every single option, but happy to answer questions. You'll see that each of the options provide varying levels of energy efficiency. What we do know is that utilizing the ground source heat pumps really produces the lowest amount of energy need or use within the building. We also recognize that the ground source heat pumps come with an added cost, but given the incentives both through Mass Save and the IRA tax credits, it actually will allow you to save money as it relates to even the base system that we were evaluating, which is a gas boiler system utilizing a traditional VAV system. So with these incentives, and it's wonderful, it's a win-win, it's a win for you guys, it's a win for the environment, that we're able to take advantage of these systems with actually cost savings to the project. So just to recap, a decision was made to go all electric in November, utilizing the ground source heat pumps. And we're going to work with the school department to arrive at the right distribution system, which is the internal functions of delivering the heating, cooling, and ventilation to and throughout the school. And we're hoping to have that decision by February. And then another component was if there was an opportunity for rainwater harvesting. And we're going to continue to study that as we enter into schematic design.
So as we get into the end of preferred schematic, a common theme throughout the design and feasibility has been obviously the impact on cost, rough order of magnitude of cost and cost, potential grants from the MSBA, and as Donna mentioned, potential incentives from utility companies, MSBA, and the ultimate bottom line to taxpayers in the town of Burlington. So what we did is throughout the process, through the decision-making process of multiple stories, multiple enrollments, it became a process of elimination to provide estimates of those options along the way and try to make decisions, rough order of magnitude, decisions based on the cost estimates. So the cost estimating process at this stage is very preliminary. It's mostly cost per square foot, taking into consideration differences, major differences between each of the options. What the goal is to provide a rough order of magnitude pricing between the options, not to come up with an actual price of the project, but to find major differences between the schemes to help drive decision making. Again, part of the process is that the drawings are sent to two independent estimators, an estimator as a consultant with Danisco Design and one from Doran Whittier. Part of that process is to have the estimators create their estimates separately and then come together and do a reconciliation just to make sure between unit prices and quantities it's reconciled and within 2, 3, 4% at this stage. So on screen now is, again, speaking just on construction costs. So on top of construction costs, we have overall project cost. So this is drilling down on the construction cost, hard costs of the construction on the site. There are two separate columns for CMR, which is 149A, design bid build 149. Those are the chapters in Massachusetts general laws that are available for construction procurement for public projects. And that was one of the many decisions throughout the process that the building committee took into consideration, the differences between those two different, delivery methods. Construction manager at risk is ultimately becomes the builder, but they become part of the project team, and they're able to support pre-construction services such as an estimate, talking about phasing of construction and scheduling. Construction manager at risk is a two-step qualifications-based process. And as I mentioned, they ultimately become the builder, and the filed subtrades or subcontractors, the publicly bid filed subtrades are the same regardless of the delivery method. In design bid build, that's commonly the more traditional method or what folks are more accustomed to, just given the history in the state. We can still pre-qualify the general contractors and of course the filed subtrades that are publicly bid, but ultimately it comes down to, once they're qualified, is more of a low bid model. The building committee chose, based on the information that the consultant team provided, to go with the design bid build model, or a general contractor. But even before we made that decision, we priced them out as two separate pricing models, because the pricing of a construction manager, because you are bringing them on early on in the process, history has shown that there's, and it's debatable, between 3 and 6% of a premium to carry a construction manager. And oftentimes, depending on the type of project, whether it's a phased renovation, multi-phased renovation, where you're touching or altering parts of the building where students might still be in the current facility, it makes a lot of sense because they've become a partner. They've become part of the project team very early, so they can provide input on how best to schedule that. But because this project is a pretty clean standalone school, albeit on the same site and in different versions, in different proximities to the existing building, it made a lot of sense, and thus the building committee made the decision to select the design bid build model. So what we did with the estimates was putting together the construction costs, but then trying to rough order of magnitude plan for what the incentives would be, just from the MSBA. But as Donna mentioned, the incentives available through the state, through MassSave as your partner, and then federal grants through the Inflation Reduction Act. So, as Donna mentioned, the selection of option 3D, running top to bottom, design bid build on the right-hand side of this table. Rough total project costs were about $97.2 million. We estimated the MSBA's grant at about $33 million. Again, this is very preliminary. This is not a commitment from the MSBA. This is just for planning purposes to help drive decisions. We estimated close to $5.5 million in incentives, which is a significant amount of money and is really great news for local communities and projects that are coming through the MSBA's pipeline, because as you know, building costs have been trending upward, and not until most recently have really started to flatline and have not retracted any, but have been a little bit more predictable. So at the end of the day, what that means is what we mean by adjusted local share is that after rebates from the state and federal that are available, we're estimating at about 58.7 as the bottom line cost of the town of Burlington. Thank you. And our partners at the Ways and Means took that information, digested it, put that into their costing models, and again with the design bid build model on the right-hand side of the screen, estimating that debt service, they estimated the average taxpayer increase per year would be $194 per year. Donna spent some time talking about the feasibility process and where we've been over the past 6 months and where we're heading, again, for the next 6 months looking forward, which is shown by the green bar there in the middle with schematic design. And that's really when the rest of the design gets determined, both in project cost, schedule, quality, and program, which has been decided, but a lot of the decisions and designs really start to take shape in schematic design. So when you're thinking about massing of the building, what it actually looks like, the colors, the materials, and the site development really start to come together. And as Donna mentioned, at the end of schematic design, the MSBA is looking to make an agreement with the town so that all those things are cemented in place, and while small changes are allowable, they're looking to make their commitment to the town in terms of what their grant is based on that information. What's shown in the orange bar is that 120-day funding period that the town will then, after the MSBA makes their project scope and budget agreement on that potential maximum grant amount, it's up to the town to determine if that funding is available, whether it needs to go through debt authorization, town meeting, town-wide vote. So we've estimated that to be at the end of 2024, depending on how far that goes into 2025, just beyond the holidays is what we're estimating at this time. And so the last 3 bars shown in gray are really just estimates. That's the detailed design. So after everything's been finalized, that takes about 10 to 12 months of the design team really just, it might seem like a long time just to draw the details of the building, but at the same time, it's really the first time the building's being built. And a lot of the building science and details really start to take shape. And so while we're estimating those at this time, what we'd expect is that by the end of schematic design, these bars would become very much more real. We understand the phasing in much greater detail. We understand the size And certainly by the end of schematic design, we have a much better detailed cost estimate, not just to the square foot of the building, but really understanding the cost and quantities of materials and almost down to the nuts and bolts of the building. So that's where we've been the past several months, and where we're heading through next summer is the overall project timeline.
There you go. So we are, just to wrap up, we'll be visiting with the school building committee pretty quickly with the vote to submit the preferred schematic report. We will have a draft uploaded by the end of day, I think December 11th, to give you all a week, just what you want to do around the holidays, but it will give you an opportunity. But there should be nothing new in there. It's everything that we've been talking about for the last year, it feels like. Submitting the preferred schematic no later than the 21st to MSBA, and then their vote to support your preferred solution in February. And so I think we really would love to hear from you. It's a community forum, and I think Bob will ask you just maybe to keep your eye on the people that are joining us virtually. But if there's anyone here that would like to come up, ask questions, make statements, by all means. I don't see any online either. While we have dead air, I do want to say that we rolled this out as well with the Fox Hill school staff, and they were really pretty excited. They are excited about the opportunity to weigh in. We'll be working with them over the next few months as well to receive their input, as much as the school department personnel and leadership team, but they're very thankful and very excited that we're actually here, so.
All right, I know it's a busy time of year. I think maybe folks will be catching this on BCAT over the next couple weeks. So I think this was a good resource for folks. Oh, I have Bill with his hand up.
Hello. My question is concerning the ground source heat pumps. You say there's going to be 80 wells. Is there, how are they connected? Are there 80 separate pipes that have to be fed into the building? How complicated is it?
They all connect outside, and then there's one pipe going into the building. I'm trying to picture the complexity inside the building and the amount of maintenance and everything else that might be required.
Yeah, that's fine. So we're happy to say that these are what are called shallow wells.
500 feet deep instead of the traditional, which is 1,500 feet deep. We don't know exactly the total number of wells. We're saying that's the order of magnitude. We'll actually be doing a test well, hopefully over February break, to understand the quantity that we'll need for it. But it's a closed loop system, Bill, so there'll be a series of wells. They're only, I think, they're 8 to 10 feet or per circuit. Go ahead, Vivian. I was saying how many wells per.
Yep, so typically for a school of this size, right, is we estimated it based on projects that we've completed before, and
I'm having
they're,
trouble hearing you.
I guess I have to kiss this thing,
Yep.
huh? All right, so if we anticipate 80 wells, we typically install them in a continuous loop of 8 to 10 that are all interconnected. Then so if we have 80 of them, we'll have 8 to 10 circuits. Each of these are piped back to a vault that is outside on the site, and then a large pipe then goes from the vault to the building. So you don't have 80 pipes going into the building. You have one large pipe, but they're all interconnected. And during construction, each of the loops will be tested to make sure that there are no leaks, and then they'll connect each of the loops together in a circuit, and they'll test that, and so on and so on. Pretty complicated.
Is this vault a separate structure? And how
It is-
big is it?
It's an underground structure. It is about,
Underground.
yeah, it's about 20 feet long by about 6 feet diameter.
Okay.
You access, so a person can actually go into the vault, and they should be checking it periodically to make sure there are no leaks. But it is typically out on the site, and you're accessing it via a manhole, something like a manhole.
And I,
Great, thank you.
yeah, and just to, you know, the system, the closed loop system, should be easily maintained with very little or no maintenance over the life of the system itself. People anticipate it to be about 50 years. And then once you're in the building, your mechanical space will look much different than what you're traditionally used to. There'll be no boilers, there'll be a lot of electric panels, and then the pumps that will actually circulate the energy and then distribute it.
Thank you.
Actually, I have a question. So if everything's all electric, right? What's the backup? If there's no power, let's say, I don't know, something gets knocked out for a week, you know, and it's negative whatever with the wind chill.
So we will have a backup generator, not an emergency, we like to just call it a backup generator. With the agreement with Mass Save, we are not allowed to introduce gas onto the site, so it would be a diesel, or there's now even there are hydro oils or something like that that you actually, it's like vegetable oil type stuff that you could use for backup generators. But, you know, we'll work with the school department to determine, you know, what's the length, how big of a tank do you want on site to support the diesel that will go on site.
All right. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Steve, Doran Whittier, and Danisco Design. We appreciate all of the updates and all the work that everyone's put in. And anyone can view this presentation and all of the other presentations on our website. There's still a contact us form on that website. We still have regular building committees, so feel free to attend any of those. And I think Bob is doing one last run through the list. No hands in the room, no hands online, so I'm gonna call it a night. Thank you, folks.
Have a good holiday.
Have a good.
Well, we'll see
Well,
some
some
of
of
you
you
before the
next,
holiday.
next week, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Who's empty chairs?
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming. Wow, we are
Well-
really excited to get you started. Like, we're really excited.
You didn't want to speak?
Real design, it really will be.